Welcome to Mind Your Business, a program of the Lewisville Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm your host, Lori Fickling, and I'm joined today by our co-hosts, David Hodges and Nina Hernandez, and our special guest, the very famous, our very own Steve Gamel.
You build me up way higher.
Way high. This guy.
Way higher.
Welcome to the show.
Appreciate you having me on. I appreciate it.
We're so excited to have you. Now, we do this rapid fire thing. It's our new thing. So
Rapid
get
fire.
ready.
Okay.
There's a little pop quiz in the middle. I'll tell you about it later. Okay, ready? Beaches or mountains?
Mountains.
Sweet or salty?
Sweet.
Dogs or cats?
Oh, dogs. Me and
You
dogs
passed.
are like
You
this.
You passed the test.
I feel like
That was
cats
the trick
are
question in the middle.
cats don't appreciate me. They're very unappreciative.
That's
animals.
a nice way to put it. They don't appreciate me.
They don't appreciate me. I love dogs.
Phone calls or text?
Both.
Okay. And I know this is for your wife, cake or pie.
Yes.
Both?
Yes.
What they don't know
things.
is that he
No.
lives with a baker. who
I do.
Takes
This
care
is
of
why
all
I
of
look
this.
the way I look. Yes. She's amazing.
She is amazing.
and all
She
that
is.
stuff. Yeah.
Ooh, Nina, I think you have a question for him. That very first question that we talked about.
I'm only asking because I have heard all the stories about Papa Ed.
Papa Ed.
Not
yeah.
Glenn.
Yeah.
That's a different Papa.
But
That's
he
different
is your
Papa.
dad on Friday.
That's a different Papa. You too can see Papa Glenn on Fridays, but Papa Ed is an interesting
So
individual.
how would your parents describe what you do?
Wow, that's interesting. I've never heard them describe what I do. I know that they're very proud. They say they read everything that at least that they can find online. And that's saying something because they're not very good at online stuff. They can barely. iPhones are supposed to be easy for anybody to use, but my parents seem to not, struggle with that. But they're very proud, and they read everything that I, as much as possible, that I put out there. They've read my book. I can tell you, Robin Maynor, who obviously a member of the chamber, owns Honest One Auto Care. She had the Papa Ed experience. He came in and he had some issues with his car, and he came in and he said, "Yeah, my son told me to come see you. He's Steve Gamel." And of course, Robin just lit up and was all happy and was saying, "I see him every week and yada yada." And she was like, "If I didn't know you, I would swear by the way that your dad talks about you that you walk around with a Superman cape on every day."
Oh.
Because of how proud he is, and not just me. I have a younger brother too, and he's just constantly talking about us and building us up. And my parents are great. So
Well, tell us what you do.
well, I'm a writer. I love to tell people stories. I've been doing this for over 25 years, and about 9 years ago, last week, I went out on my own and I started Edit This, which is a writing and editing services company. So
I read that somewhere.
You did read that somewhere. It happens to be right there, right? Good product placement.
It is.
By the way.
It is.
And so I get to work primarily. Well, I'll back up. So I get to write for a lot of newspapers and magazines, and I enjoy that, telling stories from the community and things of that nature. But I really enjoy working one-on-one with local business owners. Business owners have so many things on their plate, and they understand the importance of written content and building relationships with their clients and all those things, but they either don't have the time to do it, they don't want to do it, or they probably shouldn't be doing it because they're just, they never got the high grades in English class or grammar or anything like that. So I like to be able to come alongside and just sit with them and just tell their story in a way that's going to help them build relationships and build their brand and get noticed and obviously push more people to them. And I just, from a storytelling aspect, I think it's crucial, especially for businesses to have a story and share the why behind what they do, basically.
Yeah, because people sometimes, often are not good at telling their own stories, and when they tell a story to you and then you write it, it's very uplifting. It's really affirming, and it just makes them see themselves, I think, in a different way, just through your eyes and what you see. And it's probably better than how they saw themselves in a lot of cases.
It's funny because they know exactly what they want to say. They just don't know how to write it down. And so I think the key is obviously sitting there and just letting them talk and listen, and ask questions and help them pull all the craziness that's all the jumbled mess that's in their head and get it out, and tell me, and then we can turn around and put together something special that really resonates not just with them, but with the people that rely on them for whatever service or product that they're providing.
Right.
Things of that nature. It's just a lot of fun. It really is for me. I enjoy it. Not very many people like writing. It's the bane of most people's existence.
Right.
But I love it. It's a passion.
What led you to become a writer? Like when you were younger, did you just enjoy reading, or did you hate writing?
Yes.
Yes.
I never imagined doing any of this. I wanted to be. I want to be an athlete, professional athlete, and of course, that didn't work out.
Basketball was out.
Basketball was out. A lot of things are out, right?
It's hard to tell, but you're not tall.
I'm not tall. Thank you for pointing that out.
It's now a roast session.
This is a roast session. So I wanted to be an athlete, and then when that wasn't working out, I knew my talents were only going to get me through high school. And so from there, I wanted to be broadcast journalism. I wanted to be on SportsCenter. I wanted to be an anchor like Stuart Scott and Chris Berman and all those guys that you see. And that really intrigued me. I loved the way that they went about doing their craft, and they really sucked people in, made you want to watch it. Even non-sports people wanted to watch it just because they're just fun and engaging and all that sort of stuff. And so I felt like I could do that. So I went to school to be broadcast journalism. Well, a huge part of my degree plan was the writing piece. And they really drill that in. And so I just, over time, to make a long story short, I just fell in love with that side of the business. And really my first opportunity for a real job was working for a small community newspaper. And so I started off as a sports writer and did that predominantly for a long time. And then over time, I really didn't want to be a one-trick pony. I wanted to learn everything and experience everything, I should say, about the writing life. And so I started just asking if I could do movie reviews. I'd go to the movies by myself.
Oh, nice.
And, even if it was like a Pixar movie or a kid movie or, whatever, I'd go to the movies and I'd write a movie review about it. Or I'd ask to, write a feature on a local business owner. And the more and more I got into doing that, the more I enjoyed it. And it really, I feel like it made me a better writer because I like I said, it goes back to the storytelling that I was telling you about. I love to tell stories. It doesn't matter if it doesn't have to be sports related.
Right.
And so that's kind of my career just kind of went that direction just because I was eager and willing to write about anything. And that's what kind of got me to where I am now. It's been a heck of a ride so far.
And so you started your business on April Fool's Day.
I did that on purpose. I totally did.
That is my favorite
story.
Are you proud of me? I am so proud of you.
I did that on purpose. I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it on the best day possible. And I chose April Fool's Day because really backing up, I never understood why somebody would go into business for themselves. I'm like, why wouldn't just collect a paycheck, work for somebody else. It's steady. It's easy. You have stresses, but when you're, it's coming from a single source and you can just manage it that way. But I was so incredibly wrong. Once I realized that, hey, I'm going to give this a shot, it was the best decision I could have ever made. Being a small business owner, especially in this community in Denton County, you get so much support and you meet so many great people. And I just enjoyed it. So yes, I ventured out and I went to the county courthouse on April 1st, 2014.
Just in case you could say April Fools. That didn't work.
did my DBA and started Edit This, which I got to give props to my wife. She's the one who came up with the name. And I went there and I did it. And so I was like, I've got to be a fool to do this, but so it has to be on April Fools.
That's awesome.
That's my favorite story. When I first started at the chamber, I think you might have been one of the first ribbon cuttings. And when I heard that story, I was like, this is a good story.
I had no idea that people would gravitate to that as much as they have. I just kind of looked at it in a sarcastic way. And it was just kind of like, I've got to be a complete idiot to do this. So, and it happens to be April 1st in a couple of days. So I'm going to do it that day. So there you go. That's what happened.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
How did you get started, so to speak, venturing out from the sports writing? I mean, what made you, well, let me back up a little bit. If you could write about anything, do you still enjoy writing about sports, or I'd pay you any amount of money to write about something, what would you write about?
Oh, it would be sports every
Okay,
time.
that's still your favorite.
That's still my passion. I mean, because that's what I guess grew up with in the profession, is just being able to write about sports. And there's a charge that comes with that, like deep within my DNA. It's like, you go cover a game. You go to the stadium and you sit in the press box and you got all these other writers around you, and it's like a fraternity, and they're all a bunch of weirdos like you are. And then you get to cover high school, or you're watching college, or whatever it is, and there's just so much excitement about it, and you're following along, and you're a fan, but at the same time you're there to do a job, and then afterwards, you've got to quickly write up something that, basically summarizes what the heck happened. And so, that's my passion. But really what I've learned over time, like I was saying earlier, is I just really, everybody's got a story, and I want to be the person who tells it. And I've had the good fortune over the years of being able to tell amazing stories, whether it's about local nonprofits, or it's a kid who did good or overcame some sort of obstacle, or it's a business owner who, like me or like many of us, started from scratch, bootstrapped it and found a way to make it work. I love hearing those types of stories and the why behind so many business owners, why they do what they do. I love hearing that sort of stuff. It really gets inside me, and then when I just sit there and listen and let them talk about it, I'm like, man, I can really, this is a story I can get behind. This is something I really want to talk about.
Yeah.
And so, to answer your question, I mean, that's my passion, but then I got into all these other things, and I started in, I was writing sports for just sports writing and feature writing for Murray Media Group, like Lantana Living and Argyle Living and stuff like that. And one day they called me and they said, hey, we've got a business spotlight that needs to be written. I don't remember what exactly happened. Maybe the writer was sick, or it happened last minute and they didn't have anybody or whatever. I'm like, we need you to step up. Can you do it? And there's this little cake shop in Flower Mound. Mm-hmm. And they were like, I go, okay, when do you need it? We're like, technically yesterday. I was like, okay, sure. So I went and I met with the owner and heard her story and wrote it up, and the owner started crying, just because how happy she was that somebody not only came in and talked to her and actually took the time to listen to her and stuff like that, but actually was listening enough to turn around and take everything and put it into this really beautiful piece. And it was really only 300 or 400 words. Wow. So it was a very finite space. But she reached out to them and was like, whoever the heck that guy is, he made me feel special. And it was very, I can't thank you enough. The article's great, all that sort of stuff. And so that game, I already had confidence that I could pretty much, I love writing, so I felt like I could do it. But hearing that feedback was important to me, and it really kind of set the wheels in motion to do more. And because they told the powers that be over at Murray Media, next thing you know, I'm doing cover articles for them and, all different other types of writing. And then my career just kind of like that just kind of took off from there.
That was like
awesome.
the first step in going there. Right?
Yeah. Who knew? Little bakery shop.
So what does your typical work day look like?
Every day is an adventure. I get up early and because we got to get the kids off to school.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my wife works in Dallas, and so or Las Colinas, I think. And so I got to be the one to get the kids to school in the morning most days. And so once I get them out the door, I'm back home and I'm already trying to, sit down and start writing whatever it is that I need to write.
About how many articles do you have a day, or does?
Again, it depends. Yesterday I wrote 6 in one day, of varying lengths. Today I only wrote 2.
You're slacking today.
It's because you had this big video job.
Well, it kind of depends because, I try to be involved as much as I can in the community, and I'm in so many different networking groups and chambers and stuff like that. So like this morning I had a networking group, and then I had a one-on-one after that, and then so then I came back and I was I got a few things done, and then obviously I need to have some downtime and try to regroup. And then I have this, this podcast. And so every day is different. If I don't have any meetings to go to, I can bang out a lot of content. But that's usually not the case. I usually have a bunch of different things, whether it's meetings, networking stuff, or I've got phone or in-person meetings with clients to do interviews so that I can write the articles and things like that. So it's a hard question to answer because every day is just so ridiculously different from the next. But I do not have an issue with staying busy. That's for sure.
Do you feel like just anybody can write? Like, are your kids good writers? Have you taught them to write? Did they ask you to come write their school paper?
I have tried to teach them to write. They don't listen.
So they're typical children.
They're
They don't
typical
listen.
children. Well, I've got a 16-year-old and an 11-year-old.
All right.
So, I mean, it is what it is at this stage of the game. But do I think everybody can write? I do if they're willing to put in the time.
You wrote a book about that, didn't you?
I did.
I heard you wrote a book.
Write like you mean it? Yeah. Yeah.
This means that this is for people who don't think they can write, right? Or
Well,
they
it's for
don't want to write.
It's for people who maybe they don't think they have the chops to be a writer. Maybe they have a passion, but they're too afraid to put themselves out there for other people to see their work. Maybe they're further down the line and they have experience, and they just need extra tips, relatable tips and tricks to help them kind of get over a hump in their career. Or maybe it's for people who are writers, but they don't know what type of writer they want to be.
Yeah.
Like if they want to write about politics, or they want to write about sports, or whatever. I really wanted to just have a down-to-earth conversation for writers, or with writers, about writing, the writing process, how to be better at it, how to master your passion for it, and then see where that takes you from there. I mean, maybe you go work for the Boston Globe or the New York Times, or maybe you do what I do and you work locally and you work with business owners, or maybe you work with authors specifically and you're an editor and stuff like that. Maybe you're a screenwriter or a script writer or a speech writer or poet. There's so many different ways that you can flex your creative writing muscles. And so I tried to speak to all writers, which is that is not an easy task, because all writers are different and they have all different types of, their passions are so drastically different. But it's a wonderful community, and it's a very uplifting community. And if I can be in a room full of writers and just talk about writing, I'm having a field day. And so this book is an ode to that. It's an ode to my the experiences that I've had over the years, the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, and just kind of sharing what I've learned. That's the key.
Yeah, you talk about how to get started, and you talk about getting past that fear, and you talk about finding your niche and storytelling and all the things. I mean, I'm passionate about writing, and I love your book. So.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to just try to have a smattering of different different conversations within the book. And obviously it starts with overcoming your fear of writing, and a lot of writers, even the most experienced ones, still get petrified of putting themselves out there, because it's you're putting a piece of yourself out there when you're writing something, and it can be very overwhelming to think of, well, what if they call me a fraud? What if they think I'm not any good? There's a scene, actually, and I know Nina hasn't seen it, so I'll look at the two of y'all. But there's a scene.
I'm not here anymore.
Old movie reference alert.
There is a scene in Back to the Future where Marty goes back in time to meet with his father, and they're in the cafeteria. His dad's in high school at the time, and he's a big nerd and, sci-fi geek and all that sort of stuff. And they're sitting in the cafeteria, and Marty is actually trying to convince his dad to take out what's ultimately going to be his wife, to the Enchantment Under the Sea dance or whatever. But he notices that his dad is writing in this little notebook, and he goes, "What are you writing? What are you writing?" And he goes, "Oh, that's my stories." And he goes, "I didn't know you were a writer." And he's like, "Yeah, I just kind of keep it to myself." He goes, "Well, let me see some of it." And he goes, "Oh, no, I don't show my writing to anybody." And he goes, "Why?" And he says, "Well, what if they think I'm no good? What if that's hard to overcome." So it speaks to just what a lot of writers go through, and even myself. I've been doing this for 26 years almost, and even still, I could write something for you, and I could give it to you and say, "Okay, here's what you asked me to write." And deep down, I'm going to be petrified on whether or not you're going to love it, or you're going to, what's going to happen, or whatever. And so the first step is obviously overcoming your fear, putting yourself out there, realizing that, constructive, criticism or constructive feedback or whatever is actually a good thing. It's going to help you become a better writer. Not to mention, not everything everybody says about you as a writer is valid or true or whatever. Really, you need to cherish the moments when people do say that they love your writing. Will there be somebody out there that doesn't? Absolutely. But, focus on the positives. Try to, and don't be afraid to take that leap. Because if you're really passionate about something, why would you just keep it on a dusty shelf and never show those things to people? Right. I think that's a disservice to yourself, and it's a disservice to anybody that could potentially be a fan of your work.
Yeah. I took a writing course one time, and the guy said, some people were saying, this has already been written about or talked about, and he said, not from your perspective, it hasn't. So
correct.
Everybody has their own perspective, and they bring something new to the table.
I couldn't agree more. There's so many topics that I've been asked to write over the years, and it's like, well, it's been done. They've talked about it or whatever, but nobody's written about it from my perspective, or the way that I would go about doing it, and the questions that I ask in order to find the real story. Sometimes people think they know what the story is when they go and they sit with a nonprofit, for example, or they sit with a business owner. They think they know what the story is, and so they ask these predetermined questions. Yeah. And it's okay to walk in with a predetermined idea of what's going on, and a knowledge base of who you're talking to. But the most important thing is just to sit there and listen, and ask follow-up questions, and really pay attention to what somebody's saying, because you never know where the real story is going to come from, or a different thread or a different take on something that nobody has actually tried to attempt. And it gives the story more depth. It gives people a reason to read whatever it is that you wrote. People say nowadays, well, people don't read. I guess there's some truth to that, but I always counter with, well, people still read, and they'll read as long as you give them a reason to read. Right. Yeah. And I don't like to pencil whip anything. Whenever I'm writing anything, I'm really putting my heart and soul into it, and trying to tell a story in a way that's unique, and that's really going to tug on somebody in some sort of way, whether it's tugging on their heartstrings, or it's making them angry, or it's making them laugh, or whatever the case may be. I want to evoke some sort of an emotion from them, and hopefully they'll appreciate whatever it is that I wrote about.
I think the thing that probably has stirs a little fear in people who want to write is that it lives forever. because you told me about the process of this. So this is forever. We can always go back and look at what you chose to put in this paragraph or this sentence. And you kind of overanalyzed it a little bit, I think you said. But in the end, I think that's probably what keeps people from doing it, is because once it's out there, it's out there.
Yeah, there's no taking
No
it back.
takebacks.
There's no takebacks on it. And,
No.
But that's, I think a lot of people overanalyze and they're too afraid to let go and get it out there. But there's so much of a riot of emotions, relief and happiness and excitability when you finally are like, you know what, it's as good as I'm gonna get it, and I'm just gonna put it out there and I'm gonna see what happens. Yeah. And when it's received well, oh my gosh, like it makes you realize, well, why the heck did I pine over this for so long? Like, I should have done this a lot sooner. And even that book, like I should have done that years ago. And it hadn't even been out for, I guess it's been out for about 1.5 years now. I should have done it a heck of a lot sooner. But maybe I was a little bit too scared to take that leap at that point in time too. So, but when it got published and I held that in my hand for the first time, I mean, there was some trepidation. I was like, oh my gosh, this is officially out there.
I hope they like it.
But they better, and so, but I can't. I would do that process all over again, and I hope to. I want to write more books, but obviously I'm enjoying the ride of trying to get that into as many hands as possible, especially the next generation of writers.
Yeah. So you've done this. So as this time went really fast. But I have a question.
Okay.
You've done writing for what, 9 years, 10 years?
Well, 26 total.
But
9 years is edit this.
Yeah, on your own.
Yeah.
And then you wrote a book. Now what? What are you expanding to?
Thank you for asking that. No, I'm constantly looking at evolving and doing different things. I'm working with a lot more authors lately, which is exciting because I went through it, and so I know what other authors are going through, and so even just being a support system is huge. But I can also have been asked to, ghostwrite stuff or edit manuscripts that are complete, and all that sort of. That's exciting.
Yeah.
A big piece for Edit This that I'm excited to launch actually today is a consulting and coaching side of what I do, and so specifically I want to work with other writers who are thinking about starting a writing business or have already started recently, and they're trying to find their way in the dark, basically.
Yeah.
There are consultants and coaches out there, like you can find anybody. There's a lot of them, but very few will talk. Nobody knows the writing industry, or could speak to that particular industry like I think I can. I mean, just from a humble perspective, but I think as writers, we want to surround ourselves with other writers, and so I want to come in and be able to help those writers who are starting a business get up off the ground. And like I said, I've learned a lot over the years from, okay, so how do I start a formal company? Do I need a website? Yes, you need a website. Who's going to build the website? Well, I'm going to help. I can answer that question. Who writes the content? You're going to write the content. Great. Okay.
You're a writer.
How do I establish my brand? How do I come up with a catchy business name? How do I attract a good audience? How can I make this last for, how can I make this sustainable and be my career? How I make my primary source of income? What are some tips and tricks? What did you do right? What did you do wrong? What do you wish you could have done differently? All those things I just want to impart on other writers to help them get up off the ground.
That's another book, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure you knew that.
It's a lot of different things.
You heard it here first.
But you're going to write that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just all about educating and inspiring.
Yeah.
And I didn't get to say this earlier, but I feel like when it doesn't matter what industry you're in or what your chosen career path is, at some point you're gonna have done it for so long that you're just this wealth of knowledge, right? And I think the worst thing anybody can do when they have that much knowledge is to hold it,
Keep it to yourself.
Not
keep it
share
to
it.
yourself, not
That's fair.
share it. No, this is my book of secrets. Forget you. All that sort of stuff. You have to be able to share that. Because how do you expect the next generation to be able to follow in your footsteps? How do you want to let your legacy live on, whatever that may be, as a business owner or whatever? You need to be able to share that stuff. And so, yeah, I've been doing this for 26 years. I've learned a thing or two, whether it was beat into my head by mentors or it was because I fell and skinned my knees and got back up and did it the right way, or it was because I hit the nail on the head the first time. It doesn't matter. The point is I've learned so many things, and sometimes the simplest things, other people you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so I want to be able to share those things with people, whether it's a high school kid who's thinking about being a writer, or it's somebody who wants to start their own writing business and that sort of thing. That's what I want to do. So I'm excited to be able to launch that. That's a new thing. And hopefully there's people out there that will take advantage of it, because I have a lot that I want to.
That's very cool. And
Sure.
like Nina said, you heard it here first.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes,
Ta-da.
this is a scoop.
Thank you for being
You
with
got
us
the scoop.
today.
Thank you.
That was very interesting, very exciting.
Thank you.
Our guests have no shortage of words, which I love. This is why you're a guest.
And we fit in Papa Ed, which is always a big thing.
And Glenn.
And Papa Glenn.
Yeah.
We'll tell you about
we did.
that someday.
You
Yes.
forgot to add that you're also one of our leads hosts.
I
That
am.
is-
Yeah, you're
that
a
is the
master
newly added.
networker.
I enjoy every bit of that. I've always looked forward to Friday mornings at Leeds. Like I really feel there's been a few times where I've had to miss for various reasons, and Friday just kind of sucked.
If you miss.
If I miss.
yeah.
I love going, and I was honored when Papa Glenn asked me if I could, help out for the, leading the Leeds meetings and stuff like that. And I really get a kick out of it. It's such a fun group of people, and y'all laugh at my jokes, and
It's a great audience.
Yeah, it's
It
a
is.
great
It
audience.
is.
It's an
You'll
easy
be a-
audience.
Steve, you'll be a true star tomorrow when you're at Leeds, because you'll be the only star there.
Yeah, of
because
course,
we're
because
off.
there is no Leeds
Yeah,
tomorrow.
it's
There's no
exactly.
Leeds
That's
tomorrow.
right. Okay.
And for our listeners who don't know what Leads is, it's our power networking meeting that we put on at the Chamber every Friday morning at 8:30. It'll be back at the Chamber office, not this Friday because tomorrow is Good Friday, but
Yeah.
the following Fridays. And I think we can't end without him doing his commercial.
Go ahead.
Are you serious?
You
Okay,
have
I will
to.
do it. Okay, so all right. So at Leeds, or at pretty much anywhere, stand up and say, "Oh, good morning, everybody. I am Steve with Edit This."
Edit what?
Edit This.
What's
What?
that?
I am so glad you asked. Thank you.
And then it leads to a 30-minute
And
podcast.
then, yeah, at least this is our 30-minute podcast. So let's start all over again and go from there. No,
Thank you, Steve. Great
Yeah,
job.
thanks for being
thank
with
you.
us.
I appreciate
Yeah.
it so much.
Thank you for joining us today for Mind Your Business, a program of the Lewisville Area Chamber of Commerce. We are recording here at the studio at First Baptist Church, Lake Dallas. And I'm Lori Fickling, and our co-hosts, Nina Hernandez and David Hodges. And thank you to our special guest, Steve Gamel, with Edit This. See you next time.